This is my story as a migrant. I was born in Hong Kong when it was still part of the United Kingdom. It wasn't quite a colony. If you don't know the history of China and Great Britain in the late 19th century, then here's a really quick précis. At the time, the British Empire was expanding, and when Britain went to China, it set up a lease of Hong Kong and various other places around South China for 99 years. So it wasn't quite a colony because it wasn't as if they were setting up a completely new territory and saying this is part of Britain. It was a protectorate. Scroll forward almost 100 years, and when I was born, it was still part of Britain. So I had a British passport. So I came here when I was 4, so I am a migrant. My parents came with me, even though they didn't have British passports, because they were parents, so they were allowed to come. So it means that I'm a second generation migrant. My youngest brother was born here, so he's not a migrant, he's a British citizen. My parents were naturalised, they've got British passports as well. And my middle brother, who was also born in Hong Kong, came here a little bit after I did. So as a migrant, you come here, and I remember arriving not speaking any English. I do remember exactly what it was like. It wasn't just the photographs of the 70s that I can see in my head. I can actually remember the moments that I arrived at the doorstep of the first place that I lived in, how cold it was, my first school, and I kind of remember something from that, but not any of the lessons. I can just remember being in the playground and being surrounded by all these kids who weren't Chinese, clearly, and I can't remember what language I was speaking. I just can't. But the next time I can remember speaking English was probably I was about 6 or 7. So I was in primary school, and my middle brother had arrived by then. He didn't speak any English, so he was kind of really shy. I remember talking to the teachers and saying, well, this is how you get him to react, and I was clapping my hands and trying to talk to him and smiling at him and laughing and everything, and they kind of copied me, and so I can remember communicating with them at that moment. So I started off as someone without English. You wouldn't know that from me now, but I've been here for a long time, and I am British. I've always been British. That is indisputable. I just wasn't born here. And that's true, you know, you can be a migrant from elsewhere in the Commonwealth. You're still regarded as a second-class citizen. So I feel for all these people who are trying to escape from war or religious persecution or just plain misery, trying to get to other places. My family is a family of migrants. We're the first ones to come here, but I have family in America. I have distant family in New Zealand and Australia. I have family in Canada. And these are long-standing relationships. You know, they're not people who just arrived or were there at the late 20th century. So one of my great, I don't know how many greats uncles in San Francisco was there in the late 19th century. And he had children who have never been anywhere outside of the States. And they don't even speak Chinese. And they're really distant cousins to me. And I've only met them once or twice. And they're just American, you know, they're just as American as apple pie. They're migrants as much as we are in terms of being third generation of a migrant family. The migration isn't about demonising people, it's about people trying to make a better life for themselves. America was built on migrants. The UK is built on migrants. If you look at the history of Britain, the real Brits now live in Ireland. Being a migrant isn't a horrible thing. It's the reason why you're migrating might be the horrible thing. Now, I saw some interesting posts on Facebook about how many British people are migrating elsewhere in the world, and they should be sent back if this is the attitude that we have to bringing migrants into the country. And I wouldn't countenance that at all. You know, I think people have made their decisions to go elsewhere because it took of Spain and France and retirees. They go there because of the weather, because of the strength of the pound. They go there for the lifestyle. People live elsewhere in the world, South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, you know, all the English-speaking places, obviously. But also people who migrate elsewhere into Europe and beyond. I know people who've lived in China for decades who are English or British, but they regard China as their home. Migration isn't a one-way street. Migration is about going to places where you feel more at home. When you look at a migrant, don't imagine that you only see one story. There's hundreds, there's thousands, there's millions of stories. They're all different, and they all have meaning to that one person. Don't demonise every migrant, because a migrant isn't just a migrant. A migrant might be a refugee or asylum seeker. There might be someone striving for a new life. There might be someone who's moving because they've married somebody. They might be moving because they've fallen in love with a place. So don't simply think that a migrant is a migrant. A migrant is a person. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. Please share it. Please subscribe so you see more of my lovely face.